Hey everyone, before we get into today's video, I just wanted to warn y'all, there's gonna be some spoilers for Tears of the Kingdom. Each portion of the video will scale in terms of how spoilery it is, and I'll segment the video into portions by how late game the spoilers get, but if you want to go into this game blind, I'd recommend turning back now. Thanks. Hey gang, Jake here. The Legend of Zelda is easily the third most important franchise in Nintendo's history. Throughout all of Nintendo's innovations, their downfalls, their peaks and valleys, their highs and lows, Zelda has been there every step of the way. Given that knowledge, I feel it's understandable to say the current representation of Zelda in Super Smash Bros. Has left something to be desired. The series hasn't had a new moveset introduced since Melee, it hasn't had a character introduced since Brawl, and it hasn't had a character that's not some variation of Link, Zelda, or Ganondorf, ever. With a franchise that's as rich in character and lore as The Legend of Zelda, I can see why that's disappointing for some people, and considering how representation for franchises like Mario and Pokemon has evolved, I think it's safe to say that it's high time to see a new side of the Zelda series in Smash as well. This is a Champions Upheaval, where today we'll be looking at the way Zelda is represented in the Smash games, and try to showcase one way that representation could change in a future installment. For today, we'll be looking at two of Smash's veterans, and pitching some alternate takes on them. Let's get into it. Let's start with the hero of the wild, Link. Link is a weird character to work with, because a lot of the things that may not be appealing about his moveset design are very intentional. Link is a character with very surface-level connections to the Zelda games, but that's important so that he can maintain broad appeal to fans of the entire series. That's understandable, but also disappointing, because each incarnation of Link has tools and abilities that'd be an absolute blast in Smash Bros., and the Hero of the Wild might have the most yet. Between the Sheikah Slate, the Champion abilities, the Master Cycle, the Zonai powers, and the Sage abilities, there's no shortage of directions to take this character, but he's limited by having to reference the entire franchise. That being said, I think Smash Ultimate has already presented us with a method to take the pressure off. The Echo Fighter system has been presented as a method for allowing characters who don't stand out moveset-wise to join the battle, but I think it could have a double feature in the next game, representing legacy movesets. Plenty of characters from old Smash games have developed significantly in the years since their debut, and a lot of them could use a refresh in terms of movesets. The Echo system could allow those refreshes to happen, while avoiding alienating fans of those characters' current playstyles. As such, I'd like to see Link appear in two different incarnations. One that represents his classic gameplay style from 64 to Ultimate, and a new style that pulls from his recent adventure in Tears of the Kingdom. For my classic Link, I'm gonna have to opt for the Hero of Skies from Skyward Sword. He's the only mainline 3D Link to not appear as a fighter in Smash Bros., and something about having the first Link and the last Link really appeals to me. He's even got a set of claw shots, which means we could see the return of the Hero of Twilight's Tether Grab. With all that out of the way, let's discuss how I'd set the Hero of the Wild apart from his prior incarnations. This isn't a full moveset overhaul, as I want to keep these characters close enough to still vaguely be Echoes, so we'll just be changing specials and some extra stuff. For those specials, we'll be focusing on the Sage abilities from Tears of the Kingdom, as I think they have the most offensive potential for a pitch like this, but we'll reference some other abilities along the way. Let's start with the neutral special. This is similar to the bow and arrow that Link currently wields, but with an added adjustment. If Link fully charges his arrow, we'll have Link call on the power of the Sage of Lightning to smite his foe. This will be significantly more damaging than a fully charged arrow normally would be, but to compensate for that added power, this attack will have significantly shorter range. The side special will feature the power of the Sage of Fire. Here, Link will summon the Sage's Vow, which will then curl into a ball and charge in front of him. Upon Link's next input, this ball will then volt forward, dealing mediocre damage but strong knockback to anyone in the way. Charging this move won't increase the damage or knockback, but it will increase the distance the projectile travels. For the down special, we'll have Link access the Sage of Water's power to coat himself in a field of water. This will serve one of two purposes for Link. If he's hit during the 10 or so seconds the field is active, he'll neutralize the damage and lose the field. However, if he charges a side smash in that time, he'll instead use the field to fire a ranged wave of water, covering less distance but carrying much more power than Link's current sword projectile. Lastly, Link's up special might be his most complicated. It'll start with Link fusing a rocket to his Hylian shield, and using it to fly high into the air, albeit without a hitbox. Eventually, the rocket will self-destruct, and Link will hold himself aloft with the paraglider, along with some help from the Sage of Wind. From here, a stamina wheel will appear above Link's head, which will quickly drain to indicate how much longer Link can hover mid-air before falling back into the fray. There's two other quote-unquote moves that I want to see readjusted before we get to Link's new cosmetic features. First off, I want to see Link's down smash be replaced with a charge attack from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. The current down smash isn't bad, but it feels like his most replaceable smash attack, and pitching a Link moveset without some form of the hero spin just feels wrong. Other than that, there's Link's final smash, which was improved in Smash Ultimate, but still has a lot of growing room before it reaches the series' potential. For the new attack, we'll start with Link drawing an arrow before fusing a bomb flower to it, and firing it across the stage. If this bomb arrow hits an opponent, they and anyone else in the blast radius will be launched into a cutscene, in which the Sages of Hyrule all use their powers to lay the absolute smackdown on the opponent, before Link falls from the sky, draws the Master Sword, and stabs it downward for one final blow. Other than those gameplay changes, I'd like to see some other visual adjustments to Link to reference his most recent outing. First off, Link's taunts could be changed to reference Tears of the Kingdom's mechanics, as well as the Hero of the Wild's unique personality. For his up taunt, he could fuse a piece of meat to an arrow before realizing that it's not particularly helpful right now and putting it in his quiver. For his side taunt, we could see him throw a shield behind him and strike a pose, before remembering that he needs his shield and recalling it back to his position. Lastly, for a new down taunt, Link could pull out his Purah Pad, aim the camera behind himself, ideally with his current opponent in frame, and snap a selfie mid-battle. Link could also receive some new victory animations. I'd love to see one where he tries, and surprisingly succeeds, to eat a rock roast as a post-battle treat. Link could have another where he runs forward, fuses a bomb flower to his shield, and then uses it to perform a bomb jump off-screen. Lastly, Link could auto-build a construct to fire lasers in all directions around him, and take a moment to admire his relatively useless contraption. Finally, I'd like to discuss some new alternate costumes for Link to use. Now that we have a more classic Link repping the green tunic, I think it's safe to argue that we can get a little more out there with the Hero of the Wild's gear. Half of his alts will be based on the outfit he wears in promotional material, consisting of the Champion's leathers, the Hylian trousers, and the Hylian hood with the hood put down. The other half will be focused on his archaic gear set, featuring the archaic tunic and the archaic legwear, with Link's hair in a bit of a mess. This set could even give Link new items, like the old wooden shield and a construct sword in place of the Master Sword and a Hylian shield, but I'm not too picky about that. Other than the two default costumes, I'd love to see references to Tulin, Yunobo, Sidon, Riju, Rauru, and Purah. This concept for Link is focused less so on redefining his moveset and more so on readapting the character for a slightly more balanced mix of zoning and rushdown, as well as making the character feel more true to the recent source material. For the next segment of this video, we're going to be doing something different.
Hyrule will bow down before me.
The King of Evil, Ganondorf, has been present in nearly every Smash game, and he's always been an intimidating presence with no shortage of power. But as many Zelda fans will tell you, his fighting style isn't exactly indicative of the Prince of Darkness we know and love from the games, which usually ranges from Warlock to Samurai to Knight to strangely back to Samurai, but doesn't exactly cover the martial artist present in the Smash games. So, we'll be getting into a brand new moveset that Ganondorf could use in the next game, specifically if he were to reappear as the Demon King from Tears of the Kingdom. Before we begin, we need to figure out what to do with the current moveset for Ganondorf. It's difficult to say, because one reason the moveset for this character has stayed stagnant for so long is likely that it's tradition at this point. I can see why the team at Nintendo might not want to overhaul the character, as the current moveset Ganondorf has become iconic to the Smash games. So is there a way we can have both the classic moveset and the new moveset? I think so. I mean, if we can have a Link, a Young Link, and a Toon Link, is two Ganondorfs really such a stretch? Of course, Nintendo might not want to have two full characters with the exact same name and completely different playstyles. If that's the case, I can definitely think of some characters that could inherit Ganondorf's current playstyle. The antagonists of F-Zero. Captain Falcon's been in desperate need of a traveling buddy for years now, and I don't see a reason why a character like Black Shadow can't borrow the moveset Ganondorf was already borrowing. This way, fans of the original playstyle will still have a way to access it, F-Zero fans can get a new rep without costing as much development time as a brand new character, and Ganondorf is free to wield his variety of abilities in a manner that befits the Demon King. All that said, let's start with Ganondorf's gimmick. See, in Tears of the Kingdom, Ganondorf gets access to a new form, Demon King Ganondorf. This form is incredibly powerful, and a super unique part of this incarnation's character that could make for an interesting moveset feature. So, Ganondorf will have access to a meter all to himself, which builds when he takes or deals damage. With his down special, Ganondorf can use this meter to access his Demon King form at any time, which he'll remain in until the meter is emptied. In this form, Ganondorf benefits from significant boosts, like permanent super armor a la Bowser, and side effects for his new specials. Speaking of those specials, the neutral special will have Ganondorf set down a Gloom Spawn in front of him. This Gloom Spawn will fortunately be stationary, unlike its Tears of the Kingdom counterpart, but it will still cause some headaches. When carelessly approached, the Gloom Spawn will grab an opponent, and hold them in place while dealing slight chip damage. The Gloom Spawn can be destroyed with an attack, and will disappear after its victim gets loose, but during that time it is a powerful tool Ganondorf can use to threaten big damage and control space. When in Demon King mode, Ganondorf instead summons a Phantom Ganon, which serves the same purpose, although it holds the enemy for much longer. In addition, if a Phantom Ganon is active when Ganondorf exits Demon King mode, it will explode in a small blast. Ganondorf can only have one of either summoned on stage, but they're still a very useful tool. Ganondorf's other specials are significantly more straightforward. For the side special, he'll perform a Spear Lunge forward, which will extend further and deal more damage the longer it's charged. In Demon King form, this move leaves a trail of gloom in Ganondorf's wake, which remains for a brief period of time and deals chip damage to opponents that stand on it. The down special would normally see Ganondorf enter Demon King form, but assuming he's already in Demon King form, it'll instead have him summon a Gloom Club, point it downwards, and slam it into the ground. This move functions similarly to Ike's Eruption, and deals heavy damage to grounded opponents on both sides, but tragically fails to harm airborne opponents and leaves Ganondorf wide open for punishment, so it is very situational. For the up special, Ganondorf will perform a leaping swing of his club, slamming it down in a mighty attack that does prioritize sheer damage over recovery. The arc of the leap is slightly higher in Demon King form though, and the benefit of leaving gloom at the takeoff and impact points is nothing to scoff at. Now let's move on to the smash attacks. For the side smash, it just felt wrong to pitch a Ganondorf moveset without any sort of Warlock Punch, so we'll have him perform a similar punching attack here. For the down smash, we'll have Ganondorf take his spear and stab it into the ground, creating a powerful damaging shockwave. And for the up smash, we'll give Ganondorf his current up smash and ultimate, but replace his big ol' sword for his new big ol' club. For his nair, Ganondorf will summon a burst of gloom surrounding his body. For the fair, he'll stab forward with a spear in a relatively quick, by Ganondorf standards, motion. The bear will have him jab the scabbard of his gloom sword backwards, and the dare will have him tilt his gloom club downwards for a powerful attack that doubles as a mobility option. Lastly, Ganondorf's up air will see him swing his gloom sword from back to front in a swift, brutal motion. For Ganondorf's tilts, he'll use his standard slash for his neutral, his downward slash for his side tilt, new high and low slashes for his up and down tilts, and a running slash for his dash attack. For his grab, he'll call forth a Gloom Spawn to grab the opponent, and for his throws, he'll toy with his prey in various ways. For the forward throw, he'll palm fist the opponent and send him flying in a blast of gloom. For the back throw, he'll nonchalantly throw them backwards like a toy he's no longer interested in. For the down throw, he'll grab the opponent by the face and slam them into the dirt. And for the up throw, he'll fling them skyward to get them out of his way. Finally, we arrive at Ganondorf's final smash, and considering how iconic Ganondorf's many transformations are, it feels only right to involve them. I'd like to see a play on the current Final Smash, but with one of two options. First off, I think Dark Beast Ganon from Breath of the Wild would be perfectly reasonable for a job like this. but assuming Nintendo was a little more willing to drop some spoilers, I'd love to see Ganondorf swallow his secret stone and become the Demon Dragon for his final smash, rushing across the stage like Rayquaza in Brawl, but for much longer to ensure you can't just jump over the attack. For Ganondorf's taunts, I want him to show just how little he thinks of his foes. For his up taunt, we'll have him be briefly seized with laughter as his face contorts in a terrifying fashion. For his side taunt, he'll summon and lift a palm full of gloom, before squeezing his grip and dissipating it. Lastly, he'll have a cancelable down taunt that sees him sheath his sword, drop to his knees, and meditate while he waits for a real challenge. For Ganondorf's victory animations, I want to take some cues from Sephiroth and get creative with it. We could see one where Ganondorf is once again seized with crazed laughter as the blood moon rises in the background. Or one where he strikes a pose and turns into his Demon King form while Bokoblin troops in either the background or the foreground get riled up in excitement. For Link's alternate costumes, I mostly mentioned references to the heroes of Hyrule. So for Ganondorf's alternate costumes, I'd love to see some references to the Scourges of Hyrule. I'd want to see a bluish-grayish alt based on Colgera, a maroon alt based on Marbled Goma, a purple alt based on the Muktarok, a white alt based on the Queen Gibdo, a green alt based on the Flux constructs, and finally some unique costumes, one that gives him his Phantom Ganon form, and one that's probably very unlikely, based on Calamity Ganon's humanoid form in Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity. Finally, we arrive at the non-character possibilities for Tears of the Kingdom representation. First off, there are plenty of locales in Hyrule that'd make great stages, but there's two that stand out to me in particular. Raru's Blessing is a relatively common shrine in Tears of the Kingdom, and it's one of my favorite spots in the game. The glowing green script in the background creates such an ambiance, and I think it'd be perfect for representing the identity of the game while also being a fun neutral stage. As an alternative, Hyrule Castle would also be a great pick. You could set the stage right outside the sanctuary of Hyrule Castle, and have players battle it out on the road that led to so many battles between good and evil. In terms of music, Tears of the Kingdom doesn't honestly bring much to the table in terms of action-oriented tracks, but the Zelda series has always been missing out on several games worth of great music to pull from: Hyrule Warriors, Cadence of Hyrule, and Age of Calamity. So, on top of some new tracks from Tears of the Kingdom, I hope we see some music from those game soundtracks as well. For a potential assist trophy from Tears of the Kingdom, if there's one aspect of the game I'd like to represent more in this pitch, it's the constructs. And I think the best pick for that is Master Koga. Upon being summoned, he'd have a group of Yiga grunts build him a flying contraption, which he'd use to stay above the stage and rain down cannon fire from on high. This would be very disruptive, but a skilled player could use his glider as a platform, and if they could attack Koga enough, he'd crash land and leave a bunch of bananas in his wake. To conclude, we've got one more aspect of the pitch to cover, and that's a potential new boss battle from The Legend of Zelda. Perhaps surprisingly, since we've already got the main antagonist of Tears of the Kingdom here, I'd rather opt for a boss from a different Zelda game. And since this pitch already involves the original hero and the most recent hero, I'd love to see the original demon make his Smash debut. Demise would be an absolute thrill ride of a boss fight, and may be one of the only ones in series history that feels like a proper duel, with his combination of brutal strength and genuine swordplay. Plus, I'd love to see the Demon Kings take each other on mano a mano. That'd be an absolute blast. And that's about it. Everything I've got to say on this topic. Or at least, it would be in any other video, but this time is different. If you think back to about 20 minutes ago, you'll remember I mentioned having a gripe with the fact that every Zelda character in Smash is either a Link, a Zelda, or a Ganondorf. I stand by that, and while I absolutely love the new take pitched in this video, I'd still love to see a brand new rep from Zelda in Smash. And the Breath of the Wild trilogy has no shortage of great options. So tune in next time for part 2 of A Champion's Upheaval, where we'll be discussing the possibilities for some Zelda reps that are brand new to the Smash games. In the meantime though, I'm gonna go wander through the depths and get my ass beat. Peace out.